Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 6 articles in this episode for you, and all of these URLs are in the description of this video for your convenience if you want to do some more research on them. YouTube. And we'll go ahead and hop right on into them since it looks like our audio is working properly. The first one is off of InfoWars, and it says exclusive. Russian bank docs show how Putin laundered money to Hillary and Podesta. Wars investigative journalist Jerome Corsi met with former vice head of Armed Services Committee and House Homeland Security Committee, Kurt Weldon, to discuss his committee's deep research into the Clinton technology transfers to Russia in exchange for Clinton Foundation donations. Weldon validated much that is presented in the following article, part 1 of a series of investigative articles coming out over the upcoming week, tell by Weldon and other sources. Congress may want to examine concrete evidence showing Russian President Vladimir Putin paying Hillary Clinton and John Podesta for a long time before the mainstream media goes overboard trying to fabricate a tie between Putin and President Donald Trump. The money trail hunt begins with a document InfoWars has obtained from Russian Central Bank Significant Control, known generally as the RSC Registry. This document traces the ownership of Metcombank, a relatively small Russian domiciled bank located in the Russian Ural Mountains, to ownership by Viktor Vesselberg, a Russian billionaire with close ties to Putin. As we shall see, this document provides evidence of circuitous path the Russian government has been using since Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State to make large financial payments to John Podesta and the Clinton Foundation. And there is picture of this document here in this article if you want to pull it up and take a look at it. It says, be sure to keep referring to this document to cross-check as you continue reading the article below. As the RSC registry makes clear, Vesselberg has been paying Clinton and Podesta through a complicated money laundering scheme involving Metcombank in Russia, with payments tracing back to the Renova Group, energy and investment international conglomerate also owned by Vesselberg. And there is a picture here. It says a March 1, 2013 article from Russian media in which Vesselberg confirmed the questionable bank deposits. It says the funds rediverted to Clinton and Podesta through the Renova Group and Metcombank originate in large part from Rusano, a state-owned investment fund owned by the Russian government. Conveniently, Vesselberg is a board member for Renova. Here it says this is a New York Times article from April 23rd of 2015 revealing how Clinton made military transfers to Russia. It goes on. The entire scheme involves a Netherlands-listed private company that plays prominently into the international money laundering the Russian government has been conducting through offshore in the Cayman Islands, as documented by Panama Papers. Money laundering schemes created by professional criminals are typically complicated. To begin understanding the RSC registry on Metcombank, note at the bottom box on the chart, second page, makes clear that Vesselberg effectively owns 100% of Metcombank. Metcombank appears to be the bank Vesselberg has used to make transfers to the Clinton Foundation, with the money flowing first through Moscow branch of Metcombank into Deutsche Bank and the trust company Americans in New York City, finally ending up in a private bank account in the Bank of America that is operated by the Clinton Foundation. How Putin paid Podesta is more complicated. The complication begins when we examine the RSC registry and realize that Vetselberg owns Metcom Bank through a series of intermediary companies, starting with Renova Group, conglomerate with interests in oil, energy, and telecommunications that lists Vesselberg as chairman of the board. The Renova Group owns and operates Renova Assets Limited, a private investment company headquartered in the Bahamas, for which Bloomberg lists no key executives, board members, or members of the executive committee. Conveniently, Vesselberg also has ties to Rosnano, the Russian state investment fund, by his ownership and management of the Renova Group in Russia. In 2011, Vesselberg directed Rosnano to make a $35 million investment into Joel Unlimited, a small Massachusetts-based energy company owned by Joel Global Holdings in the Netherlands, with Joel Global Stichting the ultimate controlling entity. The Rosnano investment into Joel Limited, Joel Unlimited, when then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton spearheaded the transfer of U.S. advanced technology to Russia, some with military uses, as part of her reset strategy within the country. As previously reported in the summer of 2011, while he was advising then Secretary Clinton on State Department policy, John Podesta joined the board of Joel Unlimited, a small Massachusetts-based energy company, its holding company, Joel Global Holdings NV, which was based in the Netherlands, and Joel Global Stichting, which appears to be the ultimate controlling entity. Podesta, it turns out, has been paid as an undisclosed, paid, my tongue's twisted. Podesta, it turns out, has been paid an undisclosed amount starting in for serving on the executive board of Joel Unlimited that he neglected to report to regulatory authorities in the U.S., as well as consulting fees from the Wise Foundation, a group controlled by Swiss billionaire Hans-Georg Wise, an investor in Joel Energy. In August of 2016, report entitled "From Russia with Money," the Government Accountability Institute noted that Podesta consulted for a foundation run by one of the investors in the Joel Energy house, George, who in turn was a major Clinton Foundation donor. Podesta was eventually paid $87,000 by the Wise Foundation in 2013, according to federal tax records. The GAI report also documented the Wise Charitable Foundation has given between $1 million and $5 million to the Clinton Foundation. Stichting was established in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, on March the 14th of 2011. John Podesta joined the Joel Global Stichting's executive board on June the 25th of 2011. The Joel Global Stichting is a foundation, but it's not strictly a foundation in the charitable sense. A foundation of this type, a Dutch stichting, is a popular means for reducing one's tax burden, as noted on the website of the Panamanian law firm Mossack, which is the heart of the Panama Papers investigation into offshore banking and money laundering operations, as archived and released by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. Accountability Institute concluded that although Podesta is listed on the corporate records, he failed to disclose his membership on the board of Joel in his federal financial disclosure forms when he joined the Obama White House as a senior advisor. The circle. Vetselberg, the Renova Group, the Skolkovo Foundation, and the Hans-Georg Wise all have ties to the Clinton Foundation, either as substantial donors or as participants in the Clinton Global Initiative. Joel Global Stichting and Joel Global Holdings NV also figure prominently as a client of the Mossack. So there you have that. The next one's off BizPac Review, and it says Congressional Dems computer aides in criminal probe owed money to Hezbollah fugitive. Congressional aides suspected of criminally misusing their access to House computer systems owed $100,000 to an Iraqi politician who is wanted by the U.S. authorities and has been linked to Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed Middle Eastern terrorist outfit. Imran Awan and 4 of his relatives were employed as information technology aides by dozens of House Democrats, including members of the Intelligence, Foreign Affairs, and Homeland Security Committees. Administrator level IT access was terminated earlier this month amid a criminal probe by U.S. Capitol Police. Suspected security breach, including an off-site server housing congressional data. The Daily Caller News Foundation investigative group that while working for Congress, the Pakistani brothers controlled a limited liability corporation called Cars International, a CIA for short, Cars International a car dealership with odd took and was unable to repay a $100,000 loan from Dr. Ali Attar. Philip Giraldi, a former CIA officer, wrote that was obviously in Beirut, Lebanon, conversing with Hezbollah official in 2012, shortly after the loan was made. Attar has also been accused of helping provoke the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq, Iraqi dissidents opposed to Saddam Hussein. After removing the U.S., Attar made his money practicing medicine in Maryland and Virginia and defrauding Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance companies by billing for non-existent medical procedures. The FBI raided his offices in 2009, and the Department of Health and Human Services sued his business partner in 2011. Attar was indicted in March of 2012 on separate tax fraud charges after the IRS and FBI found he used multiple bank accounts to hide income. He fled back to Iraq to avoid prison. He's a fugitive. I'm not aware of any extradition treaty with Iraq, Marsha Murphy, spokesman for the federal prosecutors in Maryland, told the DCNF on Tuesday, or if when he returns to the U.S., the prosecution will continue. Imran, Abid, and Jamal Awan, as well as their wives, Natalia Sova and Hina Alvi, were all on the congressional payroll. Not long before the indictment, Pakistani-born Virginia resident Nasser Khattak, who co-owned CIA with Abid, still had access to some bank accounts holding Attar's assets. Khattak was a realtor with the Attar's permission through adjustments to the accounts that he controlled as the realtor for Al-Attar. Abid managed CIA's daily operations, even though he was also employed full-time running computers for representatives that have included Emmanuel Cleaver of Missouri, Tammy Duckworth of Illinois, and Yvette Clark of New York. But the car dealership was hemorrhaging money, often shown cars borrowed from a dealership next door. It was very bad record keeping in Cars International. It is close to impossible to make any sense of all the transactions that happened, Khattak said in court documents. CIA's finances interwove with the houses. A car dealing associate who was owned or owed money by the brothers was placed on the congressional payroll. Khattak said Khattak said CIA was a family business, and by 2010, Imran was its primary major instead of Abid. Abid Awan filed for personal bankruptcy in 2012 because the dealership was in his name, listing $1 million in liabilities. Security red flag and background checks for employees in sensitive positions. The loan from Attar was never repaid, leading to a lawsuit over the dealership's future. Attar claimed the loan default meant the dealership became his, but refused to testify in person, giving power of attorney to someone else to give evidence on his behalf. In court documents, that was because Ali al-Attar was out of the country as he was involved in politics of the Iraqi government. Was a fugitive. That was also true. Giraldi, the former CIA officer, wrote in the American Conservative in 2013 that Attar advised President George W. Bush's key Iraqi policy advisors that U.S. forces would be greeted as liberators. In 2002 and early 2003, then Deputy Secretary of Defense Paul Wolfowitz regularly met secretly with a group of Iraqi ex partes, and consisting mostly of, also including several Sunnis who resided in the Washington area, Giraldi wrote. The Iraqis were headed by one Dr. Ali Attar. Attar's prediction was wrong, and his qualifications for making it, supposedly based on what the DC area Iraqis were hearing from relatives, were questionable because although Attar was born in Iraq, his parents were Iranian. But the U.S.-backed regime change served Attar well. In 2003, he told the New York Times that he was one of 4 people chosen by General Garner to reestablish the Iraq Ministry of Health, and that he expected to be called to Baghdad next week. That stay in Iraq apparently did not last long, because in 2009, his medical license was suspended by Maryland for separate instances of billing patients and insurance companies for unneeded services. In November of 2010, the Maryland State Board of Physicians brought still more charges of unprofessional conduct in practice of medicine and failure to cooperate in lawful investigation. He said the board was a Trojan horse for the FBI. The board said Attar's failure to cooperate with the board investigation was deliberate, long-standing, and defiant, and in March of 2012 revoked his license. The Awan brothers worked for members including Andre Carson of Indiana, one of 2 Muslims in Congress, and a member of the Ultra-Sensitive Intelligence Committee. That I have for you is off of sarahpalin.com. Here we go. Obama made this move his last day in office. Now Congress is investigating. Congress is looking into the sale of $418 million worth of U.S. weapons to Kenya that was approved last day in office per Breitbart. The sale was approved by the State Department and Congress was notified on January the 19th. The insert here has a quote from it. It says, the sale would allow Kenya to buy 14 weaponized crop duster-like planes, including 2 trainer planes and services for missions against terrorist groups. A handful of lawmakers led by Representative Ted Budd, Republican of North Carolina, are questioning why the contract to produce the planes was awarded to major defense firm L3 Technologies, which has never produced such a plane, while a smaller disabled veteran-owned company in North Carolina that had already made those planes at a lower cost was not considered. It looks like politics, Budd said in a phone interview with Breitbart News on Monday. Why are they sending it to someone that's produced 0 for twice the price? This is inappropriate. And the article continues. Republicans are not the only officials confused by the deal. Representative Sanford Bishop, a Democrat from Georgia, will also sign a letter addressed to the Kenyan ambassador this week, which will encourage the country to reconsider alternative. And there's some comments at the bottom of this article if you want to pull them up and take a look at them. My attitude would be, no, you don't call and ask them You call and tell them not no, but hell no, and tell them that if they want to deal with Obama on this, that they can take it out of his bank account. That it ain't coming out of the Treasury. That's why they don't put me in charge of anything. This next one's off of BizPac Review. It says, DCNF exclusive. Obama's DHS tried to hack Indiana's election system while Pence was governor. Security, DHS officials tried to hack Indiana's state electoral system with at least 14,800 scans or hits between November the 1st of 2016 the 16th of 2016, the Daily Caller News Foundation investigative group has learned. The attacks are the second confirmed IT scanning assault by DHS officials against states that resisted then President Barack Obama's attempt to increase federal involvement in state and local election systems by designating them as critical infrastructure. Members of the National Association of Secretaries of State voted Saturday at their winter meeting to oppose the designation. They are asking President Donald Trump to overturn it. Governor Mike Pence was also Trump's vice president-elect during much of the period covered by the DHS scans of the Indiana system. Secretary of State Connie Lawson, the incoming president of the association, told the DCNF Tuesday that we know that between November 1st and December the 16th, we were scanned with about 14,800 scans, nearly 15,000 different times. The state's IT team traced the intruder to DHS computer's IP address. The same DHS unit attempted 10 times in 2016 to hack into Georgia's electoral system. Are barred under DHS rules from trying to penetrate a state system without the express approval of the state. Neither Georgia nor Indiana approved the DHS scanning attempts. The DHS Inspector General has launched an official investigation into Georgia breach attempt. The IT director for the Indiana Secretary of State told the DCNF that we kindly declined DHS assistance because we were very comfortable in the work we were doing monitoring our election system. We always assumed it was because I was incoming president of the National Association of Secretaries of State and because we declined their assistance. Georgia Secretary of State Brian Kemp told the DCNF January the 24th, 2016, he was suspicious because 4 of the 10 attacks against the Georgia election network occurred as he was about to talk to DHS officials or coincided with his public testimony opposing the critical infrastructure designation. It's learning about the dates, Kemp said. Kemp hopes the IG can determine if the hacks were timed to intimidate him. Despite the scale of the scans, DHS efforts to attack its election system was unsuccessful. Our voter registration system, she said there was one slight penetration on an election website that was actually old and out of date, so it didn't go anywhere. Governmental employment or deployment of IT technology could be an evolving new tool against political opponents. Censorship, according to James Scott, a senior fellow at the Institute for Critical Infrastructure Technology, a cybersecurity think tank. Always been an issue in the brick and mortar world, so censorship in the digital landscape is simply just method, Scott said. I think within federal agencies, it is possible to imagine that there are some overreaching aggressive managers. Indiana officials have not yet asked the DHS IG to look at their state's situation. Matter under consideration, Lawson said, adding that we have sent letters to our congressional folks, our governor, and others to make them aware this happened. I'm very concerned, very concerned. The DHS spokesman told the DCNF that we take the trust of our partners in the public and private sectors seriously and will work with them to address any concerns. It does not conduct scans of networks or systems without the cooperation and consent of the system owner. Mark Lauder, a spokesman for Pence, told the DCNF personally knew Lawson while in Indiana and had complete confidence in her handling the attacks. The VP has tremendous faith in the Secretary of State and knows it's in good hands, said Mark. Handle it properly, he said. The next article is off of BizPac Review, and it says, NBC uses a group of school children to make a video trashing Trump. If you ask NBC News, it seems American school children do not like President Donald Trump. In two videos released by the network, students deliver their hopes and fears to the new president in the predominantly negative comments. And there's video of it if you want to pull it up and watch it for yourself. Just because I'm Mexican doesn't mean you can build a wall in my country, a young girl said in Dear Mr. President letters from the American children. Not letting immigrants into America is really not nice, so please let them in, another young boy said. On things that make me feel uncomfortable or I disagree with, you make me feel small because I know I can't change it, another girl shares. The editing of the NBC videos presents many more critical comments by the students that leave viewers wondering if the children really came to their conclusions on their own. You have banned an entire group of people from coming into the United States, reads, but now who will build this country up from the rubble you will put it under? I want you to know I don't like your definition of America because I don't seem to fit within it, said one older boy. Most of my family is black. I'm afraid that you're going to hurt some of us blacks, one boy said, staring straight ahead and reciting his words. Video begins with student expressing his excitement for a political outsider that can solve the discontent between the American citizens and the legislators in Washington. Many others' views were negatively centered on the very grown-up subjects of racism, immigration, wall, among others. I think that on the inside you're a good man, one young boy read from his letter. That's not what my friends think. Blasted NBC for what they saw as blatant propaganda and an exploitation of children. And there's a bunch of tweets here if you want to pull it up and take a look at that. Wow, can't make this stuff up. Is off of Viral Liberty. Congressional Black Caucus introduces bill to tax people for being white. Just when you thought you heard it all. Delusional Democrats in the Congressional Black Caucus have reportedly renewed their ill-conceived efforts to force white Americans to pay for the sins of some of their ancestors. Michigan Representative John Conyers and his fellow CBC members have reintroduced legislation that would set up a commission to consider whether reparations should be paid to Black Americans for slavery, according to the Washington Examiner. Conyers has reportedly been proposing the bill every year for the last 2 decades, as noted by the Examiner. Also consider the prospect of the federal government issuing a formal apology for the racial and economic discrimination against African Americans. Despite the fact that slavery was outlawed over 150 years ago and not every white American ancestors partook in the hideous tirade or were even in the country at the time. Moreover, according to Root magazine, known for its unusually unapologetic pro-black stance on the issues, even some free Black Americans bought and sold other Black people, and did so at least since 1654, continuing to do so right through the Civil War. And even one of the leftist papers in existence, the New York Times, admitted 2 years ago that there were bill passed into law, payments would have to come from taxpayers who have no culpability for those past crimes and little, if any, of the benefit. Were to use only the funds of white taxpayers, which would be inherently racist, reparations would therefore be funded by Americans of all races, including Black Americans. Was to all intents and purposes economically unfeasible, historically inaccurate, and a royal waste of time. One likely rooted in animosity as well as ignorance. Over 150 years have passed since America's darkest days, and within that time frame, the nation has become one of most tolerant countries on the earth, as reported 3 years ago by the Washington Post. And there is a map graph here, if you want to take a look at that. It gives percentages. And the article continues, it says, as bad as slavery was, and there's no arguing that it was horrific national sin, the time has long since come to let the issue go. That would certainly be better than flogging a dead horse, one that ought to be long buried in this day and age. For you in this episode, that there's more to follow. If you like what I'm doing, give it a thumbs up, share it on your social media so everybody gets to. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that. That way you'll stay informed.